Good morning, Revolution, and welcome to our weekly program on YouTube and other platforms, I understand, from the Communist Party USA. Every Friday morning, we get together with a panel. Today, we have Bobby Wood, Taryn, and Aaron, almost a rhyming panel. And we're going to talk about this incredible uh, very bad, awful week we've just had, or 2 weeks we've just had. It's been just a roller coaster of bad news coming out of Washington, D.C. So we have to address what's happening. Is it a coup? And how can we stop it? So it's hard to know where to start, but I want to start with you, Taryn, because you published a good article in the PW recently about the havoc that Trump's, power grab is inflicting on ordinary working people. So could you start us off with this you describe as a parade of horrors unleashed by Trump? Could you give us, some of the outline and some of the lowest points that we've seen these last 2 weeks? I think you're muted.
I said, sorry, parade of horrors, where to start, right? We've got, a flurry of executive orders, which has done everything from rip away healthcare from children, from trans children, to ending, any kind of diversity initiative in the government, in the military, in any kind of entity that receives money from the US government. And also, I think pertinent most to this show, besides those attacks on workers, is also this unelected group of people who are led by Elon Musk, who are seizing control of the basic machinery of government. So this is his stupid Doge Department of Government Efficiency group, which is not an official U.S. government agency. None of the people who work for it are actually government workers. It's just sort of private people who are gaining access to really important types of infrastructure, including the Treasury payment system, the Office of Personnel Management, which runs the human resources of the entire federal government, and basically sidestepping the Constitution, sidestepping the law, shutting down certain kinds of agencies, sending out unsecured emails to millions and millions of federal workers, trying to coerce them into resigning from their posts. And basically, I think one of the reasons why you would call it a coup, at least an administrative coup, is because none of this has been authorized by law. None of this has been authorized by Congress. Donald Trump said, okay, Elon Musk, go and do whatever it is that you want with the government. And that's exactly what's happening. So you've had workers who are trying to put themselves in between this group of unelected, tech bros, I guess is what one of the editors from People's World would call them, and these buildings basically, where they're going in and they're ripping stuff out of walls and they're installing their own servers and they're creating all sorts of really interesting backdoors to federal systems. Basically, like how it is that your grandparents would be getting their Social Security check now rests in the hands of Elon Musk, who is a Nazi, who has been throwing up Nazi salutes, who has been making anti-Semitic and racist comments for years now. He's in control of a massive part of government, and nobody elected this guy. So I hope that's as quick of a rundown as I could give on this parade of words.
It would take it would take all day, I think, to name everything. So that's a good start. Thank you. Thanks, Taryn. Aaron, you live in Washington, D.C., so you're really in the epicenter of this awful situation. How have you experienced the past 2 weeks? Have you seen evidence and have you been to any of the demonstrations that have been taking place on the streets of Washington?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Anita. Just the other day, there was a huge coalition of labor unions who were outside the Department of Labor who were singing songs. They were singing songs about which side are you on, and I think that just goes to show that working people are waking up and realizing that what we're dealing with right now is a far right corporate backed coup. And the working class has a very critical role to play in the fight back against this coup. You know, the event at the Department of Labor was really like eye opening to me because it had, labor unions like the AFL-CIO there. You had like other like local labor unions in DC there as well. And you had the like Federation of Government Employees Union there, and you also had members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. So I thought it was really awesome to, kind of see these progressives, this like progressive bloc that we have in Congress coming together with organized labor, because that is that is going to be very, very critical, I think, to the fight back against this corporate coup. And then also, just the other day too, or today as well, there are these like daily demonstrations that are happening outside the Department of the Treasury. And, these protests have been like really, really small at first, but I think now as more people kind of realize how MAGA and Elon Musk and Donald Trump, as they realize they do not have an agenda for working people and all they have to offer are tax cuts for their wealthy billionaire friends, regular everyday people are going to stand up and try to defend democracy. And, working people are fighting back. And as communists, I think we need to get involved in that resistance.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, I saw Amy Klobuchar singing Which Side Are You on Instagram from that very rally that you're talking about. It was really inspirational. Not that the vocals were all that good, but the spirit was really good. So, Bobby, let's turn to you. We really don't usually find ourselves defending USAID. It's done some critical programs that are really undermining people's right to self-determination in many parts of the world. But at the same time, there are health and development programs that Elon Musk and his ilk are trying to take away from us and from the world. Why do you think Musk chose this agency to really go after? I mean, they're in the Department of Treasury, as Aaron said, and OPM, but he's really shutting down at USAID. Why do you think that's his target?
Well, I think it must be related to his performance method of doing things, and I think that playing on being against people in other countries, sort of super patriotism, and his narrative that the United States is being taken advantage of by all these other unworthy people and countries. I take issue a little bit. I would not call what's going on right now a coup. It's certainly illegal and a power grab in the most biggest way we can talk about. But I think coups we've also seen, and it's something that we're really in danger of, and I think it involves the military and other things. And we need to be on the lookout and prevent such a coup. To me, what's the bigger picture of what's happening is that capitalism is in crisis. It looks like Trump and those people are presenting themselves as being all powerful, but I think they're really showing a weakness that they cannot deal with the problems that the world is facing. They can't solve them. That we have enough resources that humanity has created to take care of everybody, feed, healthcare, and everything. And at the same time, people are starving, people have diseases, people are homeless, people are overworked when there should be underwork, and the planet is being destroyed. All of those things are due to capitalism, and I would say the hoarding disorder that people like the billionaires have, where no matter how many $1 billion they have, it's not enough. I just wanted to talk about Musk for a minute, if I could.
Go ahead.
So he's put this reputation that he's this clever person who's, so innovative and whatever. The thing he's really mastered, and the other billionaires with him, isn't about innovation and improving life. It's about how to tap into the resources of the people. He built Tesla basically by figuring out how to get government subsidies and assistance. And this is the whole point of this plan they're doing right now, isn't to improve anything now. It's to get more of our country's resources directly to them. Not only trying to get the tax break, but even if they paid no taxes, which a lot of them do, it's about also getting subsidies and resources going directly to the capitalists. So I think that's something that we need to really emphasize, that they're taking from the public till. They got my Social Security number. Are they going to be tapping into my Social Security benefits? Probably. That's the goal.
They want to go after Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Thanks, Bobby. Yeah, Taryn, you zeroed in an article you brought to our attention about another one of these reactionary elements, and that is Alex Karp of Palantir. If I'm even saying Palantir right, Palantir is an organization I actually have never said that word. What is his role and what's his connection to Trump and to Musk?
Well, Anita, as we see, just back to your question about, US aid, it's not like the bad things that US aid does are going away, right? The bad things that US aid does, that the military does, that, whatever kinds of different programs that Musk is going to be dismantling unilaterally, undemocratically, that those things are all going to go to the private sector, right? Now, Palantir is a private company whose bread and butter is basically defense spending and also intelligence. And so if you are dismantling the public state, if you're dismantling the state mechanism, then those bad things are not going to stop existing. It's not as though Elon Musk is some sort of principled anti-imperialist, for God's sake. It's more like they are going to be outsourcing those things to organizations like Palantir, to organizations like, I forget what Eric Prince calls his concerns now, if it's BlackRock or Academi or something, but basically outsourcing them to mercenary organizations, to private concerns who are, again, one extra step removed from any kind of possible oversight or democratic control. And in addition, are doing all of these things purely for profit, right? These warmongers, these absolute nasty mercenary spies are celebrating. They are popping bottles right now at what is going on with the payment system, with what is going on with, Musk's people being able to gain backdoor access to basically all these different types of federal agencies. It's not just U.S. aid; it's the Department of Labor. That they're celebrating that the NLRB right now is dropping all of its cases against Tesla, that's dropping all of its cases against SpaceX and Whole Foods and all of these different major corporations who, workers have been spending the last 4 years fighting against. Of course, they're excited about this. And their role to play is basically that they're going to step up, as Bobby was saying, and they're going to get both hands all up into the elbows into the public treasury and start shoveling all of our hard work into their pockets and into their mouths, So, I mean, it's a pretty grim situation. And that's why we need to be, grateful that people are actually standing up and fighting back. Not the Democrats, right? Like the Democrats, it's like you got to twist their arm to do anything at all. But the workers themselves are seeing that, like, hey, wait a minute, this is not going to be a good thing for us. This is not done in our interest. And so are starting to take action. There were demonstrations all across the country this week, in front of state capitals and stuff that were objecting to this sort of behavior coming out of government, which I think is a positive thing. But we need to start thinking a little bit more strategically and a little bit more long-term as to how we're going to be dealing with what happens when Elon Musk gets his hands on Bobby's, Social Security check.
At least the Democrats pulled an all-nighter on Wednesday night just to delay the vote on Russ' vote a little bit. They did what they could, of course, not very much, but Bobby,
could we all
right, go ahead.
Could we differentiate here? I don't think this is a good time to go after, quote, the Dems. I saw a wonderful press conference of the Democratic Progressive Caucus that really came out with a fighting spirit. In my state, the governor and the mayor have stood up and claimed that they will not allow discrimination against trans people. They're taking a strong position in support of being sanctuary cities. So I think our job is to bring all, to push those forces as far as they'll go and to bring others. Even the courts have stood up for some rights. We need to be out there supporting that and shoring that up. We need to make sure that the people who have had the courage to, stand up get supported, and that the other ones get pushed. I would like to see some similar tactics as happened during the election period, where people from one district support their allies and friends in another, say, congressional district, in mobilizing people there to put pressure on their Congress people. Particularly, let's target some Republicans who find that people who are going to be suffering because their daycare center got shut down, or they feel insecure like I do about their Social Security or their Medicare or their Medicaid. Let's help our friends in other districts mobilize those people to push some of the Republicans on some of these measures, because it's going to take not just the courts, but it will take congressional action. And the way that you're going to get congressional action to turn this thing around is by mobilizing people district by district.
Thank you. Yes, we want to talk more about the fight back, but just one more question for Aaron about who our enemies are, who are our adversaries. We often use the definition from Dimitrov about the most reactionary, most chauvinistic, and most imperialist element of finance capital. That's the class that fosters fascism. Do you think Musk represents that, or Trump, or both of them? And do you think there are some counter forces in the ruling class that could be coalition partners in a fight back against them?
That's a really good question, Anita. I always say that when it comes to thinking about who our main enemy is right now, I think that definition that Dimitrov gave us of, fascism as the most reactionary and most like open form of like ruling class dictatorship remains accurate to this day. And I really think that when we look at the MAGA movement, and we try to look at it from a perspective of like a communist, so having a scientific understanding of historical development and recognizing that the MAGA movement is not this like spontaneous like phenomenon. It's something that has very deep roots in this country. And I think looking at Project 2025 as the culmination of decades of right-wing corporate back efforts to dismantle like labor rights, to dismantle civil rights, is very, very useful in this moment, because what we're dealing with, to your point about who our main enemies are, is a very well-funded network of think tanks like the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society. And then at the same time, we have these tech billionaires like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. And then we have these useful white nationalist operatives like Trump and JD Vance, all of them working together to systemically erode rights for working people and attack our standard of living. So, I really say that those kinds of three things, those think tanks like Heritage Foundation and Federalist Society, those tech billionaires like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, and also Jeff Bezos and stuff, and Trump and Vance, I say they're kind of this like unholy alliance of the most reactionary wings of the ruling class. And I think your point about the sort of like opportunities to build alliances is really, really critical, because I think that there is a need right now for, us as the working class to go on the offensive against these more corporate and more centrist forces inside the Democratic Party that, maybe we can align with them in the fight back against MAGA. But like Taryn already said, it's going to require a lot of arm twisting because we're dealing with people who are fundamentally cowardly and fundamentally inconsistent allies. And so, I think the working class has a very critical role to play right now. And I don't think we can afford to cede the fight for democracy to the liberal establishment. At the same time, that doesn't mean that we aren't going to have to, make alliances with these kinds of inconsistent forces. But I think the priority has to be on understanding that we, the working class, have to be the central force, and we have to play the initiating role in building alliances with people and forces who we know are inconsistent. But, um, thinking about something that Reverend Sharpton said a few weeks back, he said, we don't all have to think the same, but we all have to be on the same page. And I think that's kind of the position that we have to have right now. It doesn't matter that, people in our coalition are inconsistent. We know they're inconsistent. That's why we're participating in a coalition with them. Coalitions are about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. But right now we're dealing with serious threats, and unity is our strongest weapon in the fight back against these people.
Absolutely. Well said. Thanks, Aaron. One element of that fight back, or one very important element, is organized labor. And Bobby, I heard Liz Schuler on a call yesterday, and she said the thing we need to do is channel our anger and frustration into action. And to that end, the Federation has started the if Elon Musk and Trump can start their own department, they've started their own department. It's the Department of People Who Work for a Living, and they are promising to fight back. So, could you talk a little bit about labor and labor's role in this resistance? And as Aaron said, we want a working class led fight back here. How do trade unions fit into that?
I couldn't be prouder of the role of organized labor, and I'm glad you mentioned isn't that a great name? Department of People Who Work for a Living. That's a common language definition of the working class, isn't it? So, and I urge everybody to Google that and join up. This is an effort to not just mobilize union members, but people who work for a living in defense of collective well-being. Yes, labor is stepping up here in Chicago. The labor movement is all over town, visiting different locals and public meetings, talking about defending our immigrant brothers and sisters in our workplaces and in our communities. I think that I'd like to also mention, yesterday I went to a rally at the University of Illinois Medical Center where despicably they put in place a policy to deny care to children who are transgender, trying to avoid Trump's wrath, I guess. And even one young person was denied the right to have a scheduled surgery. So there was a demonstration, and it was led by the union people at the hospital, the Graduate Students Association, the Hospital Staff Association, and they spoke very eloquently in defending the rights of the patients. And that's the kind of labor community alliances that I think are winning, not only support for labor, but support for people who are under attack. The labor movement, I think, has been good in recognizing that this isn't just a bread and butter fight for things like defending public workers, which is necessary, but also looking at people, the groups that are under attack, the trans people, the immigrants, and even the Black population as a whole, with the attacks, what they call DEI, which is really attacks on the fight for equality of people in the workplace. So I think that we're seeing a new role by the labor movement. Now we have to see how we're all workers. Everybody on this call, I bet, is working for a living. So how do we talk to people in our workplaces, whether it's union or not, about getting to be part of this struggle, and especially defending the most vulnerable people that this attack is coming after.
Thank you, Bobby. Yeah, Joe, I want to turn to, well, Taryn, we need a broad coalition. I think that's what Aaron was getting at when he was talking about the unity that we need to resist the power grabs of this rogue administrations. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about some of the other elements besides organized labor in that coalition. And remember, it reminded me a few weeks ago, we had a Good Morning Revolution program about uniting the left. And what does that mean to unite the left? And what kind of, how, if people said to you, Taryn, we need to unite the left against Trump, well, how would you respond to that, that idea?
I mean, I don't think that my answer to that question would change from any other time that someone has asked it of me. I would say that our priority remains uniting the working class against Trump, right? Like, that's just plainly my answer to that. You know, people can talk about left unity, but there's a reason why there isn't left unity. And that also includes the fact that, like, there are some people out there who would call themselves socialists who would want to exclude organized labor from these struggles. There are people out there who would call themselves on the left who would want to exclude trans people from these struggles, you know, or who would want to argue that actually we do need immigration reform and we should have American jobs for American workers, you know. I don't think that those are working class positions. I think that those are bourgeois positions that come from bourgeois places. And so I would be much more concerned with uniting the working class around this issue of fighting Trump and this administrative coup that's going down, led by Elon Musk and the other billionaires. In terms of who else is included in these coalitions, you know, I think that everybody who wants to be included, who is willing to fight against Trump in a way that will win, should be. You know, I don't have a problem per se with you know, Democrats showing up and getting on the mic. I think it's a great idea personally. You know, I think more people should do it. I also think that we have to fight for working class leadership of this movement right now, you know, because there are people out there whose job it is as political consultants to run elections, and whether or not they win or lose, they're still going to have a job in the next cycle. And so they're going to, you know, come at the fight back with sort of that in mind, right? Their own self-interest as opposed to the working class's self-interest. So I think that, you know, immigrant rights groups, LGBTQ groups, women's groups, you know, the grand kind of rainbow that we saw out at, you know, the People's March in Washington, but also saw at the Metropolitan AME Church in DC on Inauguration Day. I think that all of those groups and all of those people should be included in this broad fight back, because we need as many hands on deck in order to make this work, right? It cannot be up to a couple of people, you know, elected representatives. It can't be up to leaders of the labor movement. It has to be the rank and file who are out there fighting in the streets, fighting at the ballot box for stuff. You know, I mean, it was wonderful here in New York. Earlier this week, we had a demonstration at NYU Langone against the decision that NYU had made to basically stop treating anybody who was transgender under the age of 20. And there were probably, you know, 1,500 people out there in the really, really big, you know, it was very, very cold. It was dark. It was all the way over on First Avenue. You know, people really had to schlep to get out there. But it was a beautiful thing to see that people were organizing around this and that they came from a variety of different groups. Not everybody who was there was transgender. Not everybody who was there would have called themselves a socialist, but they understood that there's no reason to deny healthcare to any child, right? For any reason. And I also thought it was heartening that, you know, our state's attorney general, Letitia James, said that, you know, if hospitals are going to stop treating transgender youth, that they will be in violation of the law. So that's the kind of like broad-based mass fight back that we need to be able to win at this moment. And so I'd say that as long as people are going to not, you know, veer off into right-wing thinking or MAGA thinking, that I would say that they're very welcome in this coalition, you know, but we also do need to be mindful of fighting for working class leadership of it.
Exactly. Thank you. Thanks, Taryn. Aaron, one more question for you. I heard Joe Sims say we have 3 ways to fight back: in the courts, in politics, political arenas, and in the streets. But, you know, while 75 million people voted for against Trump, let's say in November, there were a lot of people who stayed home. And we need to mobilize some of those people because they are against Trump and Trump's policies. And how do you think what's the best way to get those people mobilized? Is it to give them some kind of hope, or what would you say to them to start getting active, even if you didn't vote in November?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Anita. I think in order to reach out to those people who, are kind of disengaged from like electoral politics, I think over the next few years, especially as we think about how we're going to respond to this kind of like blitzkrieg that we're seeing from Trump and how we respond to Project 2025 and these horrible agendas that they have prepared for working people, I think we're really going to have to emphasize work outside of the electoral arena. I think there's going to be like these mass mobilizations and rapid response actions to protect people under attack. And those are some of the first things that we're going to have to be at, because I think we need to emphasize to people that, there is a opposition to MAGA's agenda. And I think stressing that this is opposition to the agenda is really, really critical, because that's how we can start making connections between these attacks that we're seeing on people's democratic rights and at the same time these attacks that we're seeing on working people's like standards of living. So there's going to have to be a serious need, I think, for like labor organizing and strike activity. Really looking forward to seeing what happens when these like labor union contracts are like all set to expire. I think that's going to play a very critical role. And I think we are really going to also have to, kind of going back to what I said earlier about contending with these like corporate Democrats and liberal establishment officials who aren't ready to, take up the mantle and like actually fight back against this fascism that's like here on our doorsteps. We're going to have to, I think, also try to press, like city and like state government officials where there are like non-MAGA forces that hold power. And we're really going to have to try and convince them to defy these mandates that are coming from the executive branch. I have like friends in Texas who are already talking about like plans that they're working on to get like local officials to like stand up to the Trump administration. I'm hearing about like similar organizing that's happening across like different states around the country. So I think really emphasizing that work outside of the electoral arena is going to be really, really necessary. Because also, too, I think we have to reckon with the fact that one of the main reasons that people don't vote is because no one really ever takes the time to like talk to working people and talk to them about the issues that actually matter to them. And, when there's this movement that is like focused on defending democracy, and you have these like working people who are like, well, because of democracy I can't have access to a job, I can't have access to healthcare, I don't have quality education, because a lot of people, they aren't able to make the connection between like defending and expanding democracy and trying to improve the material conditions of working people. So I think that's a real thing that we as communists are going to have to sharpen our analysis on if we want to build that kind of unity that the mass movement needs right now, because things are happening, the movement is growing, but we need to be in the millions, and that's going to require working with like workers and their labor unions. It's going to require deeper organizing in communities of color, trying to build relationships with civil rights organizations. It's also going to require us to engage with the peace movement, because a lot of those folk also didn't participate in the election. And, if we're serious about building that kind of broad and united front that we so critically need right now, we're really going to have to, I think, emphasize like how do we like build our coalition and how do we like maintain it. And I think by, again, connecting the fight to defend and expand democracy with improving people's material conditions, being like the reason that we're fighting for democracy is because we see jobs as a part of a good democracy. We see access to healthcare and housing as part of a good democracy. We see access to education as a right and not a privilege. I think that's really how we build a firm foundation for our working class fight back.
Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, that's the beginning of that vision for the future. This freedom over fascism toolkit, which has some really good ideas in it. says that we have to lead with shared values, and then we have to name the villains and expose their motivations, and finally we have to have a positive vision of the future. And I'll give Bobby, you can have the last word. What elements would you say are part of the vision for the future that we can offer people that we know the majority of people want? They don't want the Trump policies. They want a positive life, a better world, to use a phrase that we often hear. So what would you say would be the most important elements of that future vision that we can aspire to?
Well, I think you're making a good point. People don't want to go back. They don't want to go back even to the way things were under Biden, to be honest. We have to promote a vision that a better world is possible. It can't be said enough. Humanity has created all the resources to feed everybody, to house everybody, for children to go to summer camp all summer, for everything beautiful in life, if we only change the system. And I think that it's time for people want a revolution. I think what Musk and Trump are doing is a counter revolution. We want to go forward into that, and we can start talking about those things at the same time that so we go from the defensive to the offensive. I think at the beginning of this, right after Trump was elected, I was so sad to hear so many people saying, I'm just going to live through the next 4 years, or I'm just going to try to be safe and protect myself. And now I'm so heartened to see people coming out and really fighting with a lot of enthusiasm. And I think that's the way we have to go, that we are not being just protect number one. We are going to put ourselves out there to take care of each other, to take and fight. So along those lines, I'm going to check out that toolkit you mentioned, but I think we as working people should look at ourselves. We know how to talk to people. We're experts at that. You know how to get that grumpy guy, Bob, on your job to be cheerful and pitch in and cooperate. You know how to get your old Uncle Morris, who will never help do the dishes at dinner. You know how to get him to get up off of his seat. We know how to deal with people. We need to mobilize some of the skills that we have in life to talk to people, just like we did during the election. I had such an interesting experience going up to Racine, Wisconsin, where the project there was so effective in talking to people and getting them to engage with the election. And we can get people to engage with this political process if we use our skills that we already have about how you communicate as working class people. So I like to use all of the resources that the experts have, but I think we're experts in our own lives. And we need to get these conversations going in the workplace and find ways of collective action, even if they're tiny, even if it's just defending one person at work, or saying that if there's one person who's trans, or one person who's threatened with deportation of somebody in their family, and getting a group together that says we're going to stand with you. That's what's going to create the kind of culture of fight back that we need.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Bobby, and thank you to all our panelists today. It's really been such a hard week to get through, and I'm happy to be able to be with my comrades at this point, to really look to the future and to inspire us to stay in the fight, as we say. So honestly, this is a heartfelt wish to everyone to stay safe, stay strong, and stay in this fight in every way, politically, in the streets, support your unions, lawsuits, and we'll fight back. Thank you.